Good afternoon and welcome to a very special interview show of the Prode. In an era marked by turbulence from the war in Ukraine to the crisis in Gaza, from India-Pakistan tensions to the strategic rivalry between the United States and China, global alliances and partnerships are being tested and redefined. Amid this shifting landscape, the India-Japan relationship has emerged as a vital pillar of stability and strategic convergence, particularly in the Indo-Pacific region. Rooted in shared democratic values, economic alignment, and expanding defense cooperation, this partnership holds deep significance for both regional security and broader global order. Joining me to discuss this critical topic is Ms. Simran Walia, Research Analyst at Manohar Parrikar Institute for Defence Studies and Analysis, India's premier think tank on defense, security, and international relations. Thank you so much, Simran, for your time, and a very warm welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ritvish, for having me here.
So I would like to begin the discussion by asking that in the current global context, with ongoing conflicts such as India-Pakistan tensions, the Ukraine war, the Israel-Hamas escalation, and the US-China trade and tariff friction, how would you broadly assess the current state of India-Japan relations?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think the current state of India-Japan relations can broadly be assessed as stable and strategically deepening, particularly in the context of all these complex ongoing conflicts that you mentioned, such as India-Pakistan, and then the recent US tariffs, and of course the ongoing Ukraine war and the Israel-Hamas escalation. I think if we particularly talk about the recent US tariffs, we saw that President Trump had imposed wide-ranging tariffs on countries around the world, including India, which was hit by, I think, 26% tariff, and then Japan was hit by the US with 24% of tariffs on its exports to the US. Basically, Tokyo has been trying to work out some kind of concessions, and talks are still ongoing. And just like India, Japan too has not slapped any retaliatory tariffs on the US. I think regarding this specific thing, there's also a likelihood that the US could ask Japan to increase its imports of the US automobiles and agricultural products to reduce trade deficits. And what needs to be understood here is that both India and Japan have taken a conciliatory approach when it comes to the Trump tariffs, which is seen as a mutual concern for both India and Japan. And both India and Japan are members of the multilateral grouping called Quad. So we need to remember that the larger goal should be to ensure cooperation between these four democratic nations, so that they can take on an increasingly belligerent China. Regarding, I think, India-Pakistan tensions, there's no direct relation on India-Japan ties, but because Japan is not directly related to all these tensions, but Japan, of course, condemned the attacks and supported India in their official statements that I saw. I think India and Japan are continually enhancing their economic ties as well to counterbalance China's dominance in the supply chains. The Japan-India industrial competitiveness partnership and production-linked incentives attract Japanese investment in the Indian manufacturing. So that is something that is continuously happening. Also, Japan supports infrastructure development in India through the Japan International Cooperation Agency. Then if we come to the defense and security ties, they have their ongoing bilateral military exercises on all the three domains of the defense, that is air, ground, and navy. They're also now trying to cooperate on the cybersecurity, maritime domain awareness, and defense equipment cooperation. They are also cooperating on digital infrastructure such as artificial intelligence, semiconductors, and 5G and 6G technologies. And Japan is also a connectivity, it's a partner in connectivity initiatives in the South and Southeast Asia, including projects in the northeast of India and Bangladesh, which is seen as a counter to China's Belt and Road Initiative. So I think these are the current, this is how we see the current India-Japan relations playing out in the region.
So how now coming to the defense cooperation, how would you describe the present level of defense cooperation between India and Japan, and what are some of the key areas of discussions or progress for the coming years?
Okay, so defense cooperation between India and Japan has recently deepened. I think, after 2010. And however, the defense cooperation was there earlier as well. But in recent times, if we look at China's expansionist behavior in the region, India and Japan have tried to strengthen their security and defense ties, which has now evolved into a sort of robust and multifaceted partnership. So mainly, I think this cooperation is driven by shared strategic interests, particularly in countering China's growing influence in the Indo-Pacific region. And Japan aims to continue working with India to also realize the free and open Indo-Pacific vision, which was also initiated by Japan, by the former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Then if we, in the defense cooperation, as I earlier also mentioned, there have been ongoing bilateral exercises between the two countries. And there are also multilateral exercises such as the Malabar exercise. So this is one aspect that is ongoing, and I think that in the coming time, they are going to enhance their defense exercises. Then, if we come to defense technology and equipment transfers, so last year in August, Japan and India held their 2+2 ministerial meeting, in which Japan had agreed to transfer its advanced radar system, which is known as the Unified Complex Radio Antenna, to India. So this system is developed by Japan's Ministry of Defense, and it integrates multiple antennas into a single structure, which further enhances the stealth capabilities and situational awareness. So I think this is one of the recent milestones in India-Japan defense cooperation. And then, consequently, in November last year, India and Japan signed a memorandum of implementation for this co-development of the Unicorn. So this innovative technology is for fitment on board Indian Navy ships. And while Japan will provide advanced design expertise, India would be focusing on integration and co-production. In addition to this, Japan is also providing India with advanced radar systems, which are developed by companies like Mitsubishi for the surveillance purposes. And so this collaboration also extends beyond this unicorn mast and radar system, since India and Japan are also exploring cooperation in other areas, including robotics, automation, and the AI thing. Also, recently we saw that India has expressed their interest in co-developing next generation military technologies with Japan, particularly in areas like fighter jets and aero tank engines. So I think this collaboration aims to leverage Japan's advanced technological expertise and India's growing defense manufacturing capabilities. India and Japan's defense cooperation has sort of transitioned from a foundational partnership to now a more comprehensive and strategic alliance. And this not only enhances bilateral defense capabilities, but also further contributes to the regional stability and security in the Indo-Pacific region. So, like very recently, this month only, Japan's Defense Minister General Nakatani had paid a visit to India, where we saw that both the ministers discussed working on boosting the military coordination, with their talks focused on a proposed supply sharing agreement. And both had also reaffirmed that Japanese self-defense forces and the Indian military would increase their joint exercises. So also, I think India is looking to tap into Japan's long-standing experience in building tanks and aero engines. And even in this meeting, Rajnath Singh had highlighted the capabilities of India's defense industry and pitched for collaboration in these high technology sectors. So I think in the coming time, we will see more transfers of defense equipment through Japan to India. Also, I think the defense cooperation is enhancing towards more technological aspect, in terms of they are also trying to enhance their cybersecurity and the space sector. So I think that is yet to be concretized, but I think it will take shape in the near future. Yeah.
Yeah, now coming to Quad, where India and Japan both are active members. So, with evolving regional challenges, how relevant do you believe the Quad remains today? And how are India and Japan contributing to the platform? And what is your perspective on proposals by some expert for an Asian version of NATO?
Okay, so in my personal opinion, I think Quad is relevant and will continue to stay relevant in the coming times. So I think its relevance is depends not just on symbolism as a strategic alignment, but on its overall ability to deliver meaningful outcomes in responding to a changing Indo-Pacific landscape. Because we see that there are evolving dynamics now and then in this specific Indo-Pacific region. So I think reflecting the need to engage more closely with each other on the shared interest, the Quad was revived again in 2017 to feature regular leadership summits and further ministerial meetings. And the core strategic rationale for the Quad remains unchanged even now, which is responding to China's increasing assertiveness in the South China Sea, and of course the India-China border as well. So we saw that initially Quad was conceived as a response to the humanitarian crisis, and further it evolved into a strategic alliance amidst the rising China's behavior. So I think by fostering closer ties and establishing working groups across various domains, the Quad aims to bolster regional security and further promote democratic values and provide collective response to emerging challenges. So this, I think, signifies a strategic shift towards a favorable regional order for the Quad members, while also addressing broader geopolitical dynamics in the Indo-Pacific region. Uh, Quad is, of course, not a military alliance, so it provides a non-military, value-based counterbalance, which further promotes a rules-based order. And the forum has evolved and moved beyond a military lens, which now focuses more on areas like critical technologies, cybersecurity, now also climate change, global health and infrastructure and connectivity in the Indo-Pacific. So I think due to these aspects as well, the Quad is more relevant now, and it will continue to remain relevant. Also, if we see like from the Ukraine war to then the Red Sea shipping disruptions, the regional volatility has only heightened Quad's role in ensuring resilient supply chains and furthering the maritime security. And I also think that Quad is more relevant than ever, not as a military alliance, but as a strategic framework offering an alternative to coercive regional hegemony, then practical cooperation in critical domains, as I mentioned, and also it is a platform of like-minded countries to shape the Indo-Pacific order. If we come to India and Japan playing their roles in the Quad, I think both India and Japan have played complementary roles within the Quad by contributing to strategic, economic, and geopolitical objectives of the grouping. Both have common values and interests, such as promoting rules based order, regional stability, and countering China's behavior. And their role within the Quad reflects both their national priorities and their desire to shape the future of the Indo Pacific. Uh, on the one hand, India seeks to maintain its strategic autonomy and avoid any formal military alliances. And India's foreign policy approach is also non-aligned and pragmatic, aiming to balance relations with both US and China. On the other hand, I think Japan also strongly emphasizes the rules-based international order and democratic values. And Japan's foreign policy per se prioritizes humanitarian values, peacekeeping, and supporting global governance, making it an ideal partner for India in advancing its shared goals within the Quad framework. Both India and Japan have been cooperating together in the Quad domain in terms of their technological and economic cooperation, as I mentioned before as well. Japan is also increasingly willing to expand its security footprint beyond its post-World War II pacifist stance by growing its defense partnerships, like I mentioned earlier. So I think their defense cooperation will also help shaping Quad in the near future. And also, both countries have been playing leadership roles in the ASEAN and the broader Indo-Pacific. So their close relationship within the Quad would further allow them to push for policies that prioritize inclusive development, sustainable growth, and security for smaller nations in the region, further avoiding the dominance of any one power.
Yeah.
And
So
also, we know that there are emerging minilateral frameworks and trilaterals playing out within the Quad and also beyond the Quad, which include India and Japan as uh, their cooperation.
yeah. So now coming to the Indo-Pacific region, which is also one of the most discussed topics when it comes to India-Japan relations. So in the Indo-Pacific region, where do you find India and Japan finding common ground in countering the strategic rise of China? And could you share how their joint efforts are shaping up in areas like maritime security and regional stability?
Okay, so of course, firstly, I think their partnership within the Quad is very important in the Indo-Pacific region because it is combined with the regional priority and has created a natural alignment in addressing China's growing influence across security, economic, and diplomatic spheres. Both India and Japan subscribe to the concept of free and open Indo-Pacific, which emphasizes an open, inclusive, and rules-based order that rejects coercive actions by any state. Then both nations have been promoting their inclusive development, like both India and Japan seek to ensure that all nations in the Indo-Pacific, particularly Southeast Asia, are not subjected to China's dominance. Then both India and Japan work closely with the ASEAN and support ASEAN's centrality in similar ways. Uh, Both countries are working together to ensure that the global institutions like the United Nations and the World Trade Organization reflect the changing geopolitical realities, including the rise of China. And of course, both countries are committed to enhancing economic ties and reducing dependency on China, particularly in areas of critical technologies such as and semiconductors, 5G, and AI. They are also strengthening their supply chain resilience to reduce reliance on Chinese manufacturing and to diversify their trade relationships in the face of China's economic dominance. Also, their partnership through Quad allows them to leverage multilateral cooperation to maintain a rules based order in the region, ensuring that China does not dominate or destabilize the Indo Pacific region. If we talk about the maritime security, I think again they have shared concerns over China's maritime expansion in the South China Sea, and both view China's assertiveness as a direct challenge to their freedom of navigation and international maritime law. So both India and Japan are strong advocates for free and open sea lanes in the Indo-Pacific. And as maritime powers, they aim to maintain the open shipping routes and ensure that no single power, particularly China, can monopolize or militarize critical waterways like the Malacca Strait in the South China Sea. Then we have cooperative naval exercises. Like I mentioned, through initiatives like the Malabar exercises, I think the two countries conduct joint naval operations, which further enhances the interoperability and demonstrating their commitment to maintaining maritime security in the region. If we talk about the regional infrastructure and connectivity, I think China's Belt and Road Initiative, which focuses on massive infrastructure investments across the Indo-Pacific, has been seen by many as a means of increasing China's economic and strategic influence. And both India and Japan are working together to offer alternative infrastructure projects that align with the interests of local communities and provide transparent financing. For example,
Yes.
Japan has supported major infrastructure projects in India, such as the Mumbai Ahmedabad bullet train and infrastructure in the Northeast, while India has backed initiatives in the Southeast Asia and the Pacific Islands. There's also one more initiative called Asia Africa Growth Corridor. It was initiated in 2017, although it is not very concrete right now. It is not much is happening in the corridor right now, but I think there's still potential in terms of Asian and African countries working together to counter China's behavior in the Indo-Pacific region.
Yeah, earlier in the conversation, you mentioned about the Malabar exercise. So, how effective have been joint defense exercises and technology sharing initiatives between India and Japan? And are there any notable success stories or key challenges in implementing these collaborations?
Okay, so I think the joint defense exercises and the technology sharing initiatives between the two countries have become increasingly important in strengthening their bilateral security cooperation, particularly in countering the strategic rise of China and ensuring peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific. Like we saw recently that in Japan's defense white paper, China was explicitly mentioned as a direct threat to Japan's security. And of course, about India, we are aware how China is a threat. So I think both countries have deepened their defense ties over the past few years, and these initiatives have yielded significant outcomes in terms of military interoperability, strategic coordination, and enhanced technological capabilities. Both have significantly expanded their defense exercises in recent years, focusing on the tactical cooperation and response capabilities to regional threats. So these exercises, I think, are vital in light of China's growing military presence in the region, and also they serve as a key element of the broader India-Japan strategic partnership. The exercises have improved the interoperability between the Indian Army and the Japan self-defense forces. It has enabled both the forces to share tactics and procedures for dealing with common threats like terrorism and insurgency, and further enhancing their collective response capabilities in the region. These exercises have also ensured that Indian and Japanese forces can operate together more effectively, especially in scenarios requiring rapid response to regional crises. Including military contingencies and also humanitarian operations. I think defense exercises have served as a platform for military to military diplomacy, which has further reinforced the commitment of both countries to each other's security. And there has been enhanced strategic deterrence through these exercises, which sends a strong message to regional and global actors, especially to China, about the willingness of India and Japan to work together in maintaining a free and open Indo-Pacific. In addition to these exercises, I think technology sharing has also become a crucial component of the India-Japan partnership, which is aimed at enhancing the defense and technological capabilities of both countries and have focused on critical areas such as defense technology, cybersecurity, AI, and space security. So I think some of the challenges that I think have been that we know that Japan has traditionally been restrictive in exporting defense technology due to its pacifist constitution. However, now Japan has gradually relaxed its stance, particularly with countries like India, because they share common strategic interest. And this has paved the way for joint development projects in technology in areas such as missile defense, unmanned aerial systems, and cybersecurity. Also, technology sharing allows India to reduce its dependency on Western countries like Russia for defense supplies. And by acquiring advanced technologies from Japan, India is better equipped to meet the evolving security threats in the Indo-Pacific region, especially the threats posed by China's military modernization.
Yeah, and in your view, what are the current limitations or gaps in the India-Japan defense partnership that need to be addressed to strengthen future cooperation?
So I think, so if we see India's focus, I think is more continental, with a strong emphasis on its land borders, particularly with China and Pakistan. Whereas I think Japan, is focused more on maritime security, particularly in the South China Sea and East China Sea. So I think this is one area where their views differ in terms of the geopolitical dynamics and realities. So India's China policy needs to be more cautious, balancing engagement with China alongside competition. And Japan, on the other hand, has taken a more confrontational approach to China, uh, due to China's maritime assertiveness in the East China Sea and around the Senkaku Islands, which are the islands claimed by China. Also, I think these differences can sometimes complicate joint actions or the alignment of defense priorities, especially in the context of broader regional security frameworks like the Quad. So, India's non-alignment policy and strategic autonomy can also make it difficult for India to commit to more formalized military alliances. And Japan's pacifist constitution and the Article 9 of Japan's constitution, which restricts Japan from going all out on or war or in military, because Article 9 has renounced the use of war for Japan after the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombing. So I think Japan's pacifist constitution and the limits on its military expansion sometimes can constrain deeper integration of defense strategies. Also, the lack of formal defense commitments can reduce the long-term reliability of the partnership, especially in the event of escalating conflicts in the Indo-Pacific region. Then, the lack of comprehensive defense technology transfers to countries like India remains a barrier. However, they are now trying to enhance it, but earlier it was not the case because, as I mentioned, because of Japan's constitutional constraints. And of course, Japan, I think, is highly protective of its technology and tends to be conservative in sharing it with other nations, particularly those with a non-NATO or non-aligned status. So this can create challenges in deepening defense technological cooperation in India, with India. And while both India and Japan are strong economically, there are significant disparities in their defense budgets and economic priority, because Japan has a high-tech advanced defense industry, while India's defense industry, although growing, still faces challenges such as bureaucratic inefficiencies and procurement delays. So I think China's economic and diplomatic clout in Asia is another significant constraint in the India-Japan defense partnership, because both countries, I think, should navigate their relations with China, balancing cooperation and competition in ways that would further avoid provoking outright confrontation. Because, as we all know, for Japan, China's rise as an economic partner complicates its ability to fully align with India and defense partners. And because Japan has strong economic ties with China, including investments and trade. So I think there has to be a balance between trying to counter Chinese moves and also seeing how China is a big investment partner for Japan as well as India. Uh, and I think both countries would need to manage their relations carefully in terms of balancing strategic competition with economic cooperation to maintain regional stability in light of China's expansionist behavior.
Yeah, looking ahead, what does the future of India-Japan defense collaboration looks like, particularly in the context of shifting global alliances and the evolving security architecture in Asia?
Okay, so I think as the Indo-Pacific region becomes increasingly central to global geopolitics, and it is continuously evolving every other day. So I think both countries are likely to deepen their defense ties, driven by mutual security concerns and common goals. However, I think the trajectory would depend on how they address the existing challenges and seize new opportunities and further navigate the external pressures. So, as part of the broader Indo Pacific strategy, they are likely to continue expanding and formalizing their collaboration, particularly within frameworks like the Quad and other multilateral partnerships. I think the emerging new minilateral frameworks and the trilateral frameworks within the Indo-Pacific region, specifically involving India and Japan, are likely to grow and take shape in the near future. Because I think India and Japan are also trying to cooperate with other like-minded countries in the region apart from the Quad. For example, the European nations, Canada, and Germany, and even Russia for per se. So I think there are quite a lot of minilateral frameworks that could take shape in the near future and would further help in securing the Indo-Pacific region. Also, as China asserts itself in the region, I think Japan and India are likely to place a stronger emphasis on strategic dialogue and joint defense cooperation, signaling their readiness to greater regional security challenges together. And I think the frequency and scope of defense exercises between India and Japan are set to expand, providing both countries with opportunities to enhance operational interoperability and tactical coordination. Then the defense technology collaboration between India and Japan is a critical pillar of their growing defense partnership. And it will continue, I think, to be a critical pillar. As global technological competition intensifies, both countries will likely look to leverage each other's strengths to bolster their military capabilities. And As Japan gradually opens up its arms exports policies, there is a potential for increased technology transfer between the two countries, because now Japan is also relaxing its pacifist stance. So I think the defense sharing and defense technology collaboration is likely to expand. Japan could also offer advanced technologies in areas like missile defense and cybersecurity, while India's rapidly growing defense industry can complement Japan's strengths in space technologies and UAVs and also other naval defense systems. Uh, Lastly, I think both India and Japan would likely take on a more leadership role in regional security initiatives, strengthening cooperation in areas such as maritime security, counterterrorism, disaster relief, and peacekeeping. And India and Japan, I think, can play a leading role in shaping the future security architecture in the Indo-Pacific, ensuring stability and promoting a rules-based order in the region.
Thank you so much, Simran, for your valuable insights and expertise on this vital subject. As we have explored today, the India-Japan partnership stands as a cornerstone of stability in a world increasingly shaped by uncertainty and strategic alignments. Thank you so much once again for your time. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rich, for having me here. And I hope this helps the wider audience.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.